Well, sunshine, welcome back to everybody that's been here before. Welcome to anybody that's not been here before. Glad everybody's here. What we're doing today, we're going to take advantage of the fact that I've got a stock Husqvarna 455 Rancher Xtorq here. Guys, we got a lot of exciting stuff here, especially going on today. I know the stock saw isn't that exciting, but we've got the opportunity to get some numbers. How hot does a saw get? We've never been able to get stock numbers before on the multitude of tests I do on a chainsaw, so we're going to take advantage of that with a stock saw. We're going to do a base dyno runs. We do some other stuff on our dyno. We probably got one of the most unique dynos out there. We can simulate being in the cut. I can hold this thing at its max pull for any given number of time. I can hold it there till it blows up. But I'll hold it there for 4 minutes. And what we get to see there is we get to see how hot this saw gets. I've got a thermocouple in the head. What else do we get to do? We get to check fuel consumption. I'll show you here in the dyno here in just a minute. We get to check fuel consumption. We also get to check fuel economy. They're different, of course. A big saw might have more fuel consumption, but it may be better economical, right? We can also put in our cut factor chart, what I call it, which also helps us bounce one saw against another. It's a calculation based on RPMs and horsepower over a certain range. Basically tell you how this saw ought to cut in the wood, and it's fairly accurate. It's any number that I've done that shows higher, the saw cuts faster. Guys, we got a lot of exciting stuff here, especially going on today. I know the stock saw isn't that exciting, but we've got the opportunity to get some numbers. How hot does a saw get on a constant pull of 4 minutes, which is a long time, but they built these saws to handle a certain amount of heat. They built them for the homeowner to bury it in the wood with a dull chain, right? And take him 4 minutes to get through a cut. So I held it on dyno for 4 minutes, and we got us some heat numbers out of that. Now we can apply those to our ported saw, because I've always been checking the heat numbers on my other saws over a run before, but I didn't know what was good and what was bad. I know now, or I know on this saw at least. We're also gonna test AMSOIL against Tanaka oil. I typically run steel oils because that's what my local farm store has. I run Tanaka because I've got about a dozen bottles of this. This stuff here, this Walmart oil, there's nothing in the world wrong with it either. I'll tell you that right now. There ain't anything in the world wrong with this Walmart oil. It's just as good as any other. See, chicken house door don't even squeak no more. That's good stuff. But today, we're not gonna test the steel oil. We're only gonna test the AMSOIL and Tanaka. I've run them both on 4 minute heat runs. A thing about a heat run or a maximum pull for a cut, I can see deterioration in horsepower due to heat saturation. I can see that on the dyno. I am the only dyno that I know that can do that. I can hold this saw at, say, 9,300 RPMs at whatever it'll pull at 9,300, and I can see if this one here or this one here maybe has less blow-by. So, guys, we're pulling out all the stops on this stock saw while we have it, which is going to make a pretty neat video. I'll try to break this video down into chapters, so if you want to skip around and go see something else, that's fine. But I'm going to ask a favor this time. This is the first time I've shown all 4 of these things together. I'd ask that you guys help me make this kind of a flagship video for a little bit of the channel for the chainsaw testing, at least by watching it all the way through, if you would. If you can stand it, I'd appreciate that. I would also appreciate a thumbs up or a thumbs down, I guess, from everybody that watches this. I don't care if it's today or 3 years from now. I would like to make this video I don't have very many subscribers, so I would like YouTube to say, hey, there's a video we want to put out to people. I'd also ask you to give it a comment if you're capable. I know a lot of people watch that aren't even logged in. I appreciate it, guys. I really do. But if you can comment, I would appreciate that you comment. It can be something as simple as a thumbs up or a period or a smiley face or a how you doing or just whatever, or man, I hate your channel. I'd still appreciate the comment. I'm also going to ask that the bigger channels, bigger or smaller than me, the other chainsaw channels that produce content, I would ask that you guys leave a comment here if you don't think commenting on my channel will deteriorate your channel. I know people try to keep their names off other people's channels and kind of do their own thing. I'm asking you this time here, if you wouldn't mind, you guys wouldn't mind commenting too. I'd appreciate that. You don't have to worry here. I've always done my own thing. My report card always says does not play well with others. I didn't fight with everybody. I was just happy over in the sandbox doing my own thing, and that's what I do on this channel. I know there's about 3 kind of groups, if you will, and they may not get along with each other. This man better put a 4th one in there that I watch, and I don't know, and I watch them all. Guys, don't make other people's enemies your own. If you don't like who I watch, please don't hold that against me, and just leave a comment. Our comment section down here, there's never any animosity. There's people that don't agree with people in the comments all the time, but we're respectful here, guys, and we don't make other people's enemies our own. So I appreciate that. So if you'd leave a comment down here, if you don't think it'll deteriorate your channel, I appreciate you leaving me a comment. I'll quit harping on that now. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to show you my dyno, so you'll know what you're looking at, and I'm going to show you one dyno run. I'm not going to show you the 4-minute heat pull. I'll be honest with you, because man, well, who can just sit there and watch a chainsaw screaming for 4 minutes? If you want to see it, let me know, because I do record them, because that's my data. I got to get my data. So I've got them recorded. If you guys want to see stuff like that, let me know. But she's just a droning on for 4 minutes. So I'm going to show you one heat run, and I'm going to show you fuel consumption chart. We're going to show you a dyno chart. We're going to show you a heat run chart, which is just what I call it, which is 4-minute pull. We'll get to see a deterioration, a decline in horsepower there, and hopefully a difference between one oil and another. We'll see if that makes any difference. They're both good oils though, so they might be pretty close. None of them's bad. So we'll do a 4-minute heat run. We're also going to do fuel consumption on that. I've got my test bench rigged up where all I got to do is put a fuel line on here. I'll show you that here in just a second. We're doing it by weight now. We're doing gasoline by weight. My fuel consumption chart is going to be gallons and liters, so that'll help people out that aren't used to the imperial system. But gallons and liters are not 100% accurate in that I am actually measuring it weight, and I'm converting it to gallon and liters based on a standard, which we know that fluctuates with the temperature. The fact that I'm taking it by weight takes the temperature into account. We're going to put this in the cut factor chart against some saws I've ported, against my stock 440, some stuff I've had on the dyno. We'll get to 660 on there pretty soon, and I'll probably do this same kind of thing on the 660 if you guys tell me you like it. I'm going to keep doing this because this is information I'm wanting to acquire for myself. But if you guys want to see it, leave me a comment, let me know. If nobody likes seeing this, I understand that it may not be something that's desirable to watch. If this one's okay, if you think somebody else in the world would like it, try to watch it all the way through, leave a comment, interact with it, and leave a thumbs up for me, please. I'm going to get up and show you the dyno now. Okay, here's my little cubby hole for my dyno. It's a little cramped in here. I'll try to move around so you guys can see what I'm showing you. We got us a fuel line set up here going into our saw. We also got a thermocouple going into our saw, and this mounted, of course, to the bar on the dyno. The dyno's got a driven sprocket of 24 pin, and this particular chainsaw has a 7-pin sprocket on it. I will put those factors into my software. If I want to change this to an 8-pin, I can change that very easily in my software. Most of the time, it's a 7-pin. So we put it on the dyno, we put a thermocouple in the cylinder, we hook up our fuel line, and we tension the chain. We take an inch-pound gauge, we check the tension on the chain. I don't have a chain on it right now, it's just set up here to show you guys. I have that in the factor on my, that's one of the factors I can plug into my software. And it can change depending on how tight you tighten that chain. You can get it tight, you can get it loose. I try to just set it the same every time. Another thing for which I count is bearing drag on the pump side. Anything going to the input side is taken advantage, is taken care of by that gauge. Anything on the output side, I need to know what bearing drag is. So I measure that, I put that in my spreadsheet. I probably get a little bit lower numbers than some people. Dyno correction allows you 11% just for the dyno. I don't use that 11% because number one, my dyno is more efficient than that. And number two, you shouldn't use it if you can measure everything. And I've determined a way to measure everything. But you may see a little bit lower numbers on my dyno than what you see on the same saw on somebody else's. So that's basically the dyno setup. Now, we've got us a weather station up here. We're all manual data entry into the software. I've got a cell phone right here that records this while I'm doing a dyno run. So we've got the weather, we've got barometric pressure, we've got temperature, and we've got humidity. Those are the three things you need to know for your correction factor. The next one you're going to notice down here, the next readout is hooked to my scale. And you're going to see big numbers on there. You're going to see 15, 16, 17 pounds. The factor on that, without taking into consideration the weather or the chain tension, is 0.153. You ask why that number is so big? Well, I've only got a 4.24 inch long torque arm, so that's a factor. The factor that I'm running a 24-pin driven sprocket and driving it with a 7-pin sprocket, that changes all that. So between all those inputs that I have categories for in my software, could change what you guys are seeing or the calculation, but a rough number is 0.153 to whatever you're seeing up here. And always do it in the hundredths of a pound for easy math. Now, the second readout you're going to see is RPMs, tachometer. Likewise, it is not showing what the saw's RPM is. There's a factor there as well because that's reading on the input side right here. First off, if it reads 7,000, that means this shaft is turning 3,500 RPMs because there's two magnets. For every time it goes around once, it trips it twice, so it doubles my number here, which helps my refresh rate. So, and that also takes into consideration the 24-pin driven sprocket and the 7-pin drive sprocket to make that RPM tell me what the saw is turning, absent of any clutch slippage. If you'll take this number and divide it by 0.7, meaning you'll get a bigger number because you divided it by 0.7, you will come up with the RPM. You can stop the video anywhere you want, take that number, and correction factor. You can double check my math if you want. Here, I've got two temperature readouts here. The top one and the bottom one, two different thermocouples. I'm running one thermocouple on the cylinder of this saw. When we're doing muffler testing, I run another thermocouple and check exhaust temps. Next you'll see is a fuel tank. That's just an arbitrary fuel tank off of whatever. Don't know what it weighs, don't know how much it holds. It does not matter. That's what I run my saw off of to warm it up, to let it cool down, to do the regular dyno runs. When I get ready to start measuring fuel consumption and fuel economy, I'll pull this down, I'll get this saw set, and it's on this pull, and I can see this valve right here in the camera. So I will take, when I get this saw for a 4-minute heat run, I'll get it set, I'll get it to a pull, I'll switch that switch, I'll look up there at the time, and I'll let 4 minutes elapse, give or take a couple seconds. At the end of 4 minutes, I switch it back to the main tank. So it only used fuel out of this jar at the time that it was on a heat pull and for an exact amount of time. And I take weights of that fuel. we'll do fuel consumption and fuel economy on that, which I think is going to be pretty neat to be able to see what porting does. Does it kill our economy? And we're going to do it to horsepower hours per gallon, which means we can test a 660 against a little top and saw. Which one's more fuel efficient for the amount of horsepower it turns out? We might be able to learn some things from different saws by doing that. If you're interested in fuel economy, I'm personally not, other than I like finding stuff. As far as I'm concerned, pour gas in her, and the more gas she eats up, the bigger the smile is on my face, and I'm happy, happy, happy. So guys, I don't know if I forgot anything. There's the valve, which is a needle valve. You can't see it, the gauge is in the way. You guys never get to see me operating that valve, but that's a restrictor valve. It's a needle valve, and what I'm doing is I'm just putting I'm just putting restriction on the line, making that saw pull hard. I can pull this saw for 5 minutes, and my oil tank, I know that's a concern probably that some people may bring up, my oil gets to about 125 degrees over 4 minutes on a 70-80 degree day. So we can do heat runs just till the cows come home. I'll show you guys one dyno run. I won't show you a heat run unless you guys want to see stuff like that. You let me know. I'll show you one dyno run, and we'll get right into showing you the results. 0.765 pounds, 800 grams. AMSOIL SABER dyno run. We'll start with cut factor chart. We got the Husky 455 in there, the stock. It come in just slightly above Kevin's 025 stock, and a bit above the 026 stock aftermarket big bore, which we know how dismal those things are out of the box. And then it come in below Joe's MS250 ported, and then it come in below Kevin's MS250 that's ported. Come in way below, of course, 440 stock. But we're starting to get some saws in here, and the more saws we get, the more fun this will be. But it does show you a nice place for it to be, and it hung in there about with a 025 stock. The next thing we're going to see is the fuel consumption. We had two different runs, and I'm going to show you this. This first run was 4 minutes and 4 seconds. We burnt 0.135 pounds of fuel, which is approximately, depends on the temperature, 0.0225 gallons. This saw will burn 0.33 gallons an hour, which means you can get about 3 hours cutting out of a tank of gas pulling it like I did, or it burns 1.26 liters per hour. And that was at pulling 3.29 horsepower. Now that gave us a horsepower hour per gallon of 9.91 and a horsepower hour per liter of 2.61. The other run was 4.5 seconds, and the horsepower was 3.36, which gave us 10.16 horsepower hours per gallon, so it was more efficient. We still burned the same amount of fuel in an hour because the gallons, the weight did not change. We used the exact same amount of weight on both, down to the thousandth of a gallon, or thousandth of a pound. We got 10.16 horsepower hours per gallon and 2.67 horsepower hours per liter. So that gives us something to start bouncing against. I've got a comparison here, but this is the first saw I've done it on. So we got nothing to put it in. This is brand new. Don't think anybody else is doing this. If you like it, let me know. While we were doing the fuel consumption, we did that in conjunction with a heat run for 0 seconds to 4 minutes. And we were taking our temperature every 15 seconds here and here for the two different oils, and the horsepower that it was pulling every 15 seconds here and here. I put those on a chart for you. Now you'll notice over here on the left hand side it goes from 2.50 to 4.50. Ignore the decimal. That's what I had to do to make this all work on the same chart. That's 250 degrees Fahrenheit to 450 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, We've got 0 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes, and every 15 seconds here, so a quarter, half, and 3/4 of a minute, all the way out to 4 minutes. The red line is the Tanaka oil, the blue line is the Saber oil. And I'm going to tell you, this is the heat that starts at 250 and goes up to 450, and this is the horsepower it ran. That's why the decimal's in there. So it ran about 3.25 horsepower and whatever that is across the chart there. So that's what we're looking at. We did not have much of a decline in horsepower in the Saber temperature. Okay, you can see that line's awful wonky. I'll talk to you about that in a second. We had a little bit more of a decline between when we started and when we ended on the Tanaka oil, so we had a little bit more heat saturation there, and you'll notice that one was a little wonky. What we had going on, we actually had a carburetor issue that I've since worked on, and it was starting to show up here at the end of this run. I done the next one, and it wouldn't settle in good, and I actually had a carburetor issue. Problem is, I didn't know that till I went to edit the video. I knew there was a carb problem, but I didn't know it was going to show this bad. And I don't fudge my numbers, so guys, what we see is what we get. Last chart we got for you is the straight up dyno run for Tanaka oil versus AMSOIL. Tanaka's the blue line, AMSOIL's the red line. You can see the AMSOIL stretched out a little bit harder on the very top end, up to about 3. When it settled out, the blue stretched out, the Tanaka stretched out pretty decent, and stretched out a little bit longer. Now, I'm going to tell you that I ran the Tanaka first, and I ran the AMSOIL second. And what that normally doesn't mean anything, because I bring the saw down to cool. I go off a head temperature. I start them at the same place. I want everything being even Steven. Problem is, we had a little bit of a carburetor issue come the red line, the Tanaka. And I really think that's where we were at with the separation in the lines the way they are. Was actually tuning, a little bit of a tuning issue. We basically got some pretty decent base runs on this. Between here and there, believe it or not, isn't that much. That's less than 1/10 of a horsepower right here and right there. So it's pretty minute. You'll see my scale where we start pulling the saw down. We stretched her out to 11,500 RPMs and pulled it down to 5,500. We actually pulled it past that. I quit my chart at 5,500. And my chart here is running 1 horsepower up to 3.75, and that'll vary depending on the saw. But you can see between here and here's maybe a 1/4 horse. So there was some difference. I'm not saying there wasn't difference, and I'm going to attribute this to tuning of the carburetor, and I believe I've since got that fixed. Guys, I appreciate it. If you like this kind of thing, let me know. Please leave me a comment. Please leave me a thumbs up, especially on this video. Don't care if we're 10 years from now. Let's keep this particular video going so people will know the kind of things we're doing on the channel. Thank you.